What if the people you trusted most abandoned you when you needed them the most? Sarah thought she had it all: a loving husband, a stable job, and a family that embraced her as one of their own. But when her pregnancy left her vulnerable, the people she sacrificed everything for turned their backs on her. Left to fend for herself, she fought to rebuild her life, only to watch the very people who betrayed her lose everything in the ultimate twist of fate. And when they came crawling back, begging for her help, she had one final answer. Stay tuned to see how Sarah takes back her power, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories. My name is Sarah, and for a long time, I thought I had life all figured out. A great job as head of marketing, a loving husband, David, and a comfortable, secure life. I was paying off our mortgage with my own salary, proud of my financial independence, believing I had built something solid. Family was a big part of our lives. David had a younger brother, Michael, and their mom, Barbara, was always around. Their father had passed away years ago, so the boys took it upon themselves to look after her. I found it touching. Watching David care for his family made me love him even more. Barbara seemed to like me at first. She'd chat with me over coffee at family gatherings, always asking about my work. "Marketing, huh?" she'd say with a nod. "Sounds important." I liked that she took an interest. I wanted to fit into David's family, to be part of their tight-knit world. Our first few years of marriage were filled with weekend barbecues, holiday dinners, and impromptu game nights with the extended family. I remember one Thanksgiving, crammed around Barbara's dining table, laughter filling the air. "Pass the gravy, will you?" David's uncle bellowed from the end of the table. "You've had enough gravy, old man," Barbara shot back, grinning as she handed it over. I looked around the table at the familiar faces, feeling warm, safe. This was my family now, too. The first crack appeared at a New Year's Eve party at Barbara's house. I was in the kitchen, refilling my glass of wine, when I overheard her talking to David and Michael in the living room. "Did you see what Jennifer's wearing?" Barbara snickered. "That dress must have cost all of $5. "Nice." I froze, my hand tightening around the bottle. Jennifer was David's cousin, a single mom trying her best. "I mean, I'm just saying," Barbara continued, her voice laced with disdain. "Some people should know their limits. Don't try to play with the big boys if you can't keep up." Laughter, low, conspiratorial. I peeked around the corner. Barbara leaned in, whispering to her sons, their heads close together, giggling like children sharing a secret. Something twisted in my stomach. This wasn't the warm, welcoming family I thought I knew. At first, I told myself it was harmless teasing, but as time passed, I couldn't ignore the unease creeping in. It wasn't just Jennifer. Barbara always found someone to pick apart, and every time David and Michael were right there, nodding along, their laughter muffled but ever present. At every family gathering, it was the same pattern. Barbara huddled with her sons, whispering behind cupped hands, their eyes scanning the room before settling on their next target. One Easter Sunday, I had enough. Barbara was in the living room, David and Michael flanking her like loyal guards. "Did you see Susan's new car?" she said, her voice low, but not nearly low enough. "Probably got it from one of those buy here, pay here lots. I bet she'll be paying it off until she's 80. Son, before I even realized I was moving, I was on my feet, crossing the room. "Hey," I said, sharper than I intended. "Don't you think that's a bit much? Susan can probably hear you." The room fell silent. Barbara's eyes locked onto mine, narrowing. "Well, well," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like we've offended your delicate sensibilities, Sarah." David and Michael exchanged uneasy glances, and in that moment, standing in the heavy silence, I realized something. I wasn't part of their family. I never had been. "I just think it's rude." I pressed on, my heart pounding. "Why do you always have to put people down?" Barbara's fake smile disappeared. "If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Why don't you go sit somewhere else?" I felt like I'd been slapped. I looked at David, expecting him to back me up, but he just stared at the floor. "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "I will. From that day on, family gatherings became a special kind of hell. I'd sit alone, nursing a drink, while David stuck to his mother's side like glue. He'd throw me apologetic glances now and then, but he never came to sit with me. Why don't you ever stand up to her? I asked him one night after a particularly awful dinner. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. She's my mother, Sarah. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell her she's being cruel. I want you to have my back. But he never did. And slowly, I started finding reasons not to go to these family events, work emergencies, migraines, anything to avoid the cold stares and whispered insults. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, life threw me another curveball. I was pregnant. I stared at the little plastic stick in my bathroom, my heart racing. 2 pink lines, clear as day. David, I called out, my voice shaky. Can you come here? He appeared in the doorway, his face concerned. What's wrong? Wordlessly, I held out the test. His eyes widened as he took it from me. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment I felt like maybe everything would be okay. Maybe this baby would bring us closer together, heal the rifts that had been growing between us. But life had other plans. The pregnancy was rough from the start. Constant nausea, dizziness, and a perpetual threat of miscarriage kept me on edge. My doctor put me on bed rest, which meant working remotely. As the weeks went by, my condition worsened. My eyesight started to deteriorate rapidly, a rare complication that my doctor said could be temporary but might also be permanent. Squinting at my laptop became impossible. With a heavy heart, I had to quit my job. I needed David more than ever, but he seemed to be drifting away. He'd come home late from work, citing extra projects or drinks with colleagues. More often than not, I'd fall asleep alone, the echo of the front door closing jolting me awake in the middle of the night. The day of my C-section arrived faster than I expected. My eyesight had worsened to the point where the doctors insisted on the procedure. Natural birth was just too risky. As I lay on the cold operating table, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. "Where's David?" I asked the nurse, my voice trembling. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Your husband's in the waiting room, dear. He said he'd rather stay there." The surgery went smoothly, and soon I heard the most beautiful sound, my son's first cry. As they placed him on my chest, I felt a rush of love so intense it took my breath away. Later, in the recovery room, David finally showed up. His face was a mask of discomfort and annoyance. "Look, Sarah, I got to say something. This whole thing, it's not right." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. "Normal women give birth on their own, without all this surgery crap. And men, we're not supposed to be here for this. We should be meeting our wives and kids at home, like in the old days." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "David, I couldn't risk." "Save it," he cut me off. "I'm heading home. This place gives me the creeps." The next few weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. David was rarely home, and when he was, he contributed nothing to our son's care. Instead, he complained. "Can't you shut him up?" He'd growl when our baby cried in the middle of the night. "I'm trying," I'd whisper, exhaustion pressing down on me like a weight. "He's teething, David. It hurts him." But David had no patience. "All you do is focus on the kid. What about me, huh? What about our sex life?" I would stare at him, too drained to even argue. I was surviving on 2 hours of sleep, still recovering from major surgery, and this was what he was worried about. As the weeks turned into months, his dissatisfaction only grew. One evening, as I rocked our 6-month-old, trying to soothe his cries, David dropped a bombshell. "You need to go back to work." I turned to him, disbelief written all over my face. "What? But the baby—" "We'll hire a nanny," he cut me off. "We can't keep living like this, Sarah. We need the money." I wanted to argue, to tell him that our son needed me, that I wasn't ready, but the look in his eyes told me it was pointless. So, with a heavy heart, I started job hunting. Finding work with my compromised vision wasn't easy. Eventually, I landed a position at a smaller company, but the pay was nowhere near what I had earned before. When I told David, his reaction was exactly what I had expected. "That's it?" he scoffed. "We're paying a nanny for this?" Tears stung my eyes. "I'm doing my best, David. It's not easy with my eyesight." "Excuses," he muttered before walking away. And so began my new reality. Rushing to work every morning, guilt gnawing at me as I left my son with a stranger. Struggling through my shifts with my limited vision. Coming home to a resentful husband and a child who needed me more than ever. Time passed in a haze of exhaustion, tension, and survival. Before I knew it, 2 years had gone by since my son's birth. Despite everything, I loved him fiercely. Every milestone, every laugh, every sleepy cuddle reminded me why I endured. But family gatherings remained a source of stress, particularly because of Barbara. She played the doting grandmother when others were watching, but there was no warmth behind it. "Come to Grandma," she'd coo, arms outstretched. But my son would cling to me, turning his face away from the stranger before him. Barbara's expression would darken with frustration. "What have you been telling him about me?" she'd accuse. "You're turning my own grandson against me." I kept my voice even. "He just doesn't know you well, Barbara." "Well, if you visited more often." "Don't you dare blame this on me," I snapped, but she was already storming off to complain to David. Then, on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning, my world shifted again. I stared at the pregnancy test in my trembling hands, my pulse pounding in my ears. Positive. A wave of fear washed over me. My first pregnancy had left me broken, my health hanging by a thread. Could my body survive another? Did I even have a choice? I ran the numbers in my head, counting the weeks. It was already too late. The decision had been made for me. With shaking hands, I called David at work. "What is it?" he answered, his tone impatient. "David, I'm pregnant." There was a long pause. "Look, Sarah, I'm busy. We'll talk later. Just don't quit your job, all right? We can't afford that." The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling more alone than ever. Thankfully, this pregnancy proved easier than my first. My morning sickness was manageable, and my vision remained stable. I continued working, determined to provide for my growing family. But as my belly swelled, the distance between David and me seemed to grow exponentially. He spent more and more time at his mother's house, often not coming home until late at night. One evening, as I struggled to put our son to bed while balancing my swollen belly, David walked in. "Hey," I said, hopeful for some help. "Can you read him a story? I'm exhausted." David glanced at us, then at his watch. "Can't. I promised Mom I'd help her move some furniture. Don't wait up." As the door closed behind him, I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I looked at my son, his big eyes staring up at me trustingly, and at my rounded belly, home to a child I already loved fiercely. As my 7th month of pregnancy rolled around, I found myself preparing for Thanksgiving. Guests started arriving in the afternoon. My parents came early, my mom immediately rolling up her sleeves to help in the kitchen. Friends and relatives trickled in, filling our home with chatter and laughter. Just as I was about to serve dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Michael, David's younger brother, and to everyone's surprise, he had a woman with him. "Everyone, this is Tiffany," Michael announced, beaming. "My fiancée!" The room fell silent for a moment before erupting in congratulations. I plastered on a smile, trying to ignore the twinge of jealousy at the way David's eyes lit up at the sight of his brother's happiness. Barbara arrived shortly after, her eyes widening as she took in Tiffany. "Well, well," she said, her voice dripping with approval. "Aren't you a sight for sore eyes?" Throughout dinner, Barbara fawned over Tiffany, peppering her with questions and hanging on her every word. I tried to focus on being a good hostess, but I couldn't help overhearing their conversation. "So, Tiffany," Barbara said loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. "Michael tells me you're a manager at National Bank. How prestigious." Tiffany nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Yes, I've been there for about 5 years now." Barbara beamed. "You must be doing very well for yourself, unlike some people who can only pop out babies and breed poverty," she added, throwing a pointed look in my direction. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. My mother tensed beside me, ready to speak up, but I placed a hand on her arm, silently pleading with her not to make a scene. "You know," Barbara continued, her voice sickeningly sweet, "Tiffany here makes $155,000 a month. Now that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always dreamed of. Smart, beautiful, successful." Tears pricked at my eyes as I remembered the years I'd spent supporting our family. paying the mortgage, building a career I was proud of. All of that seemed forgotten now. "I think we should continue this lovely evening somewhere more suitable," Barbara announced, standing up. "Tiffany, dear, why don't we all go to that new restaurant downtown? My treat, of course." Before I could process what was happening, Barbara, David, Michael, and Tiffany were heading for the door. David didn't even glance back at me as they left. The remaining guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the festive mood thoroughly ruined. One by one, they made their excuses and left, leaving only my parents behind. They offered to help me, but I refused, saying that they needed to rest themselves. Finally alone, I sank onto the couch and let the tears flow freely. Hours passed as I sobbed, my hand resting on my swollen belly, wondering how my life had come to this. It was nearly dawn when I heard the front door open. David stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. He didn't say a word as he made his way to the bedroom. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone and opened social media. There they were, Barbara, David, Michael, and Tiffany, grinning for selfies at an expensive nightclub. The caption read, "Best Thanksgiving ever with my real family." As my due date approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The doctors had scheduled my C-section, insisting it was the safest option given that it had been less than 3 years since my last one. I tried to focus on preparing for our new arrival, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with David. One chilly winter afternoon, I found him unpacking bags full of summer clothes. "What's all this?" I asked, puzzled. David shrugged, barely meeting my eyes. "Just saw a good sale. Thought I'd update my wardrobe." It didn't make sense, but with the impending birth occupying my thoughts, I pushed my suspicions aside. I'd been meticulously saving money in a separate account, determined to take a couple of months off work to recover and bond with our new baby. My workplace had approved 2 months of unpaid leave, which was a relief. I'd set aside enough for the mortgage, bills, and even a babysitter for our 3-year-old. For once, I felt prepared. 3 days before my scheduled C-section, chaos erupted. I was resting on the couch when David burst through the door, Barbara hot on his heels. "Hurry up!" Barbara barked as David rushed to our bedroom. I struggled to my feet, waddling after them. David was throwing clothes into a suitcase, the summer clothes he bought. "David," I said, my voice rising with panic, "what are you doing?" He barely glanced at me. "Michael's getting married in Hawaii. We're all going." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What? But my C-section is in 3 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" David zipped up his suitcase, finally meeting my gaze with cold indifference. "You'll manage. You always do." Before I could respond, he brushed past me, Barbara ushering him out the door. The door slammed, leaving me in stunned silence. Reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. I scrambled for my phone, my hand shaking as I checked our joint account. Empty. All the money I'd saved, gone. With trembling fingers, I dialed David's number. He answered on the final ring. "What?" he snapped. "The money," I choked out. "All our savings, where is it?" There was a pause, then a cold laugh. "We needed it for Michael's wedding gift. Don't be so greedy, Sarah." The line went dead. A sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I looked down in horror to see a puddle forming at my feet. My water had broken. Panic seized me. I couldn't go into labor now. The risk to my previous C-section scar was too great. With one hand on my belly and the other clutching my phone, I called emergency services. The hospital was chaos, doctors shouting, machines beeping. I woke hours later to the gentle beeping of monitors. My mother's tear-stained face swam into view. "Sarah," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're okay. The baby's okay." Slowly, the fog lifted. I'd nearly died. My baby had nearly died, but we'd made it. 3 days after the emergency C-section, I was feeling surprisingly strong, both physically and emotionally. The doctors were pleased with my recovery and gave me the green light to go home. David hadn't called once since he'd left for Hawaii, not to check if I was alive, not to ask about his new son. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over. I called my parents and asked to stay with them for a while. Their response was immediate and supportive. My parents doted on both boys, giving me time to rest and recover. I started researching divorce lawyers and gathering documentation of our finances. Then, exactly a week after I'd left the hospital, my phone rang. David's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering on the third call. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you at home?" David's voice was a mixture of anger and confusion. I took a deep breath. "I'm with my parents, David, with both of our sons. I filed for divorce." There was a moment of stunned silence, then a bark of laughter. "Divorce? Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you?" "Everything you've done?" I felt a surge of anger. "You mean like abandoning me right before I gave birth or stealing all our savings?" "Oh, get over it," he scoffed. "I'll pay you back. No problem. In fact, I don't even want to see you again. You know why? Because I'm going to be rich." He launched into a tirade about how Michael's new wife had offered him a job as her deputy at the bank, how they were going to start their own financial company, how she was going to make them all wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. "You never believed in me, Sarah," he spat. "You always shot down my ideas, always held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now, and you're just a loser who can't see potential when it's right in front of her." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. To my surprise, David didn't contest anything. He returned the money he'd taken from our accounts and agreed to pay alimony. When it came to the house, I had years of mortgage statements proving I'd been the one making payments. The judge awarded it to me without hesitation. The day I returned home with my boys, David was there, stuffing the last of his things into boxes. He sneered as I walked in, the baby cradled in my arms and our toddler clutching my hand. "Enjoy this dump while you can," he scoffed, hefting a box onto his shoulder. "I'll be in a mansion soon, swimming in cash. You'll see what you missed out on." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because as he walked out the door, something shifted. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted off my shoulders. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken resentment, suddenly felt bigger, lighter. A year and a half passed. Life had settled into a new rhythm, one that belonged to me and my boys alone. I returned to work, juggling my career and motherhood, carving out a life where we weren't just surviving, but thriving. It wasn't always easy, but it was ours. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a news alert. The moment I read the headline, my jaw dropped. "Local banker exposed as fraud leaves family in ruins." I clicked the article, my heart pounding. Tiffany Michael's wife, the same woman who had swept into their lives with grand promises of wealth and success, had been running an elaborate con. She had convinced David, Michael, and Barbara to take out massive loans to fund a non-existent financial firm. She had even talked them into mortgaging Barbara's house, funneling every penny they had into this illusion of a golden future. But there had never been a company, no empire, no wealth. The office she had shown them was nothing more than a short-term rental, a carefully staged prop in her grand deception. And then, just as swiftly as she had appeared, Tiffany vanished, taking millions with her. The betrayal ran even deeper. Hidden in the fine print of their debt-ridden downfall was another loan, one taken out specifically to fund Michael and Tiffany's extravagant Hawaiian wedding. The very event David had abandoned us for. Shock, disbelief, and yes, I'll admit, a quiet satisfaction curled in my chest as I read. They lost everything. Barbara's house, their cars, their savings, every last material possession, seized. And the debt? Crushing. Through the grapevine, I heard the fallout was swift and brutal. Barbara, once so proud and imperious, had been forced to take a job as a cashier just to scrape by. David and Michael, both drowning in financial ruin, were barely staying afloat. I had never been more grateful for the divorce. My boys and I were untouched, safe from the disaster that had swallowed my ex-husband's family whole. Then, just when I thought it was all behind me, my phone rang. Barbara's name flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Sarah." Barbara's voice was small, stripped of its usual arrogance. We need your help." She launched into a plea, her words tumbling over each other. They had nowhere to go. David and Michael were desperate. The children need their father and grandmother, she insisted. You can't turn your back on family. I took a slow, steady breath, memories flashing before me. The Thanksgiving humiliation, being abandoned before my C-section. The years of being dismissed, belittled, treated as less. Family? My voice was calm, unwavering. You weren't concerned about family when you left me alone, pregnant and in danger. You weren't concerned about family when you stole my savings. You weren't concerned about family when you called me a loser. Barbara started to protest, but I didn't let her. I'm sorry you're in this situation, but I'm not responsible for the choices you, David, and Michael made. My priority is my children, and I won't expose them to the chaos you created. Please don't contact me again. I hung up, blocked her number, and as I set the phone down, I felt at peace. It was done, truly done. What do you do when the people who once belittled you, abandoned you, and stole from you suddenly come crawling back, begging for help? Sarah had spent years sacrificing for a family that never truly saw her as their own. She worked hard, built a life, and even supported David financially when he contributed nothing. Yet when she needed him most during her pregnancy, during her most vulnerable moments, he turned his back on her. He left her alone to chase illusions of wealth, throwing his lot in with the people who never respected her. But life has a way of making things right. The same people who mocked Sarah for being just a mother found themselves bankrupt, ruined, and desperate, all thanks to their own greed. They had laughed at her struggles, dismissed her as unworthy, and now, with nothing left, they expected her to save them. But Sarah? She had already learned the most valuable lesson. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by love, respect, and actions. And the people who had chosen to betray her? They weren't her family, not anymore. So when Barbara called, pleading for help, expecting forgiveness, Sarah did something she had never done before. She put herself and her children first. No guilt, no hesitation, just a simple, final no. And just like that, the weight of the past lifted. She was free. Now, here's the real question. Would you have done the same? Would you have forgiven them, or would you have walked away like Sarah did? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
The first thing I noticed when I stepped through the front door was the silence. No welcoming embrace, no warm words of congratulations, just the faint smell of stale beer and takeout. "James?" I called out, my voice echoing through our once cozy home. I shifted baby Ethan in my arms, his tiny face scrunched up in sleep. After 2 weeks at my mother's house recovering from the birth, I'd expected, well, something more than this. The living room was a mess. Pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, empty beer cans scattered across the floor. I sighed, feeling the weight of motherhood and housekeeping already pressing down on my shoulders. "In here?" James's gruff voice came from the kitchen. I steeled myself and walked in, hoping to see a hint of the man I'd married. He was slouched at the table, scrolling through his phone. He barely glanced up as I entered. "Oh, you're back." "Yes, we're home," I said, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. "Did you miss us?" James shrugged, his eyes still on his screen. "Sure. How's the kid?" "Ethan," I corrected gently. "His name is Ethan, remember? Would you like to hold him?" Finally, James looked up. His eyes widened, and not in a good way. "Jesus, Alicia, you look different." I felt my cheeks flush. "I just had a baby, James. It takes time for the body to—" Yeah, he waved his hand dismissively. "Just maybe lay off the ice cream for a while." "Huh? You're looking a bit puffy." The words hit me like a slap. I clutched Ethan closer, as if to shield him from his father's callousness. "I can't believe you just said that." James stood up, stretching lazily. "What? I'm just being honest. You asked me if I missed you, and honestly, I miss the old Alicia, the hot one." Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I'm still me, James. I'm just adjusting." He snorted, grabbing another beer from the fridge. "Yeah, well, adjust faster. I didn't sign up for a mom bod." The room seemed to spin around me. Was this really happening? Was this the man I'd chosen to father my child? "I'm going to put Ethan down for a nap," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Maybe you could clean up a bit while I'm gone? James just grunted, already back to his phone. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like a mountain. When I reached the nursery, pristine and untouched since I'd left for the hospital, I finally let the tears fall. "Oh, Ethan," I whispered, gently laying him in his crib. "I'm so sorry. I thought your daddy would be different." As I stood there watching my perfect little boy sleep, a strange feeling began to creep over me. It wasn't just sadness or disappointment. It was something darker, something I'd never felt before. Rage. How dare he? How dare James treat me like this after everything I'd been through? The sleepless nights, the pain, the fear. All to bring his son into the world. And this was how he repaid me? I clenched my fists, a plan already forming in my mind. If James wanted the old Alicia back, he'd get her, but not in the way he expected. "I promise you, Ethan," I whispered fiercely, "Mommy's going to fix this, and Daddy, he's going to regret ever taking us for granted." As if in response, Ethan's tiny hand reached out, grasping my finger. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about us, and I would do whatever it took to protect my son from a father who clearly didn't deserve him. The game was on, and James had no idea what was coming. I never thought I'd dread the sound of my own husband coming home, but here I was, tensing up at the jangle of keys in the lock. Ethan squirmed in my arms, sensing my anxiety. "Honey, I'm home," James called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I heard the thud of his briefcase hitting the floor, followed by the familiar hiss of a beer can opening. "In the nursery," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. I just finished changing Ethan and was about to put him down for a nap. Heavy footsteps approached, and James appeared in the doorway, beer in hand. His eyes raked over me, and I felt myself shrink under his gaze. "Still wearing those maternity clothes, huh?" he said, taking a swig. "You know, most women are back in shape by now." I bit my lip, fighting back tears. "James, it's only been 6 weeks. The doctor said." The doctor said, he mimicked. "I'm starting to think you're using that as an excuse. Maybe you just like being fat." The words stung, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. "Can we not do this in front of Ethan?" James rolled his eyes. "He's a baby. He doesn't understand anything." He peered at Ethan, his lip curling slightly. "Though I gotta say, he's not exactly a looker, is he? Must take after your side of the family." Something snapped inside me. "That's enough!" I hissed, careful not to raise my voice too much. "He's perfect, and if you can't see that, then maybe you need to take a good, that hard look at yourself." For a moment, James looked taken aback. Then his face hardened. "Watch your tone, Alicia. I'm the one bringing home the bacon around here. The least you could do is try to look good for me." I placed Ethan in his crib, my hands shaking with anger. "And what exactly have you done to help since we brought him home? Have you changed a single diaper? Gotten up for a night feeding? Hell, have you even picked up after yourself?" James' face flushed red. "That's woman's work. I didn't become a father to play housemaid." "No," I spat. "You became a father to criticize and belittle your wife and son. Well done, James. Father of the Year material right here." He took a menacing step towards me, and for a moment, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he drained his beer and tossed the can on the floor. "Clean that up," he growled. "And while you're at it, maybe think about hitting the gym. I'm not asking for much, just for my wife to look like my wife again." With that, he stormed out, leaving me trembling in his wake. I heard the TV blare to life downstairs, some inane sports commentary filling the house. I sank to the floor, tears finally spilling over. How had it come to this? The man I married, the one who had held my hand through labor and promised to love me forever. Where was he? A soft coo from the crib caught my attention. I looked up to see Ethan watching me, his tiny face a picture of innocence. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I stood up, wiping my eyes. "No more," I whispered to Ethan. "Mommy's done being a punching bag." I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. "Mom?" I said when she answered. "I need your help with something." As I outlined my plan to Barbara, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. James wanted the old Alicia back? Fine. But he'd soon learn that you should be careful what you wish for. "Are you sure about this, honey?" Mom asked, concern evident in her voice. I looked at Ethan, peacefully drifting off to sleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied. It's time for a change. And James? He won't know what hit him. As I hung up, I heard James shouting from downstairs, demanding dinner. I squared my shoulders, a grim smile playing on my lips. Let him yell. His days of calling the shots were numbered. The game was changing, and I was about to become a player he never saw coming. The acrid smell of whiskey hit me before I even opened the front door. My stomach clenched, knowing what awaited me inside. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the storm. James? I called out, stepping into our dimly lit living room. Empty bottles littered the coffee table, and the TV blared some mindless reality show. A grunt from the couch was my only answer. I found James sprawled there, eyes glazed, another half-empty bottle dangling from his fingers. You're home early, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Rough day at work? He snorted, taking another swig. What do you care? Too busy with your precious baby to give a damn about me. I bit back a retort. Engaging him when he was like this never ended well. I'm going to check on Ethan, I said, turning towards the stairs. Oh yeah, run to your little brat, James slurred, his words dripping with venom. God knows he needs all the attention he can get. Might grow up to look halfway decent if you hover enough. I froze, my hand on the banister. What did you just say? James hauled himself up, swaying slightly. You heard me. Kid's as ugly as sin. Guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, huh? Something snapped inside me. All the pent-up anger, hurt, and frustration of the past months came rushing to the surface. How dare you? I hissed, advancing on him. How dare you speak about our son that way? He laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Our son, please. I'm starting to wonder if he's even mine. Gus, maybe you've been fooling around, huh? Found someone who doesn't mind your fat ass? The slap echoed through the room before I even realized I'd raised my hand. James stumbled back, shock momentarily replacing the drunken haze in his eyes. You bitch, he snarled, rubbing his cheek. You'll pay for that. Fear gripped me as he lunged forward, but years of resentment gave me strength. I sidestepped his clumsy attack, sending him crashing into the coffee table. Enough! I shouted, my voice ringing with an authority I didn't know I possessed. I've had enough of your abuse, James. This ends now. He struggled to his feet, glass crunching under his shoes. You think you can stand up to me? You're nothing without me, Alicia. Nothing. A baby's cry pierced the air, snapping us both out of our rage. I turned and raced up the stairs, heart pounding. Behind me, I heard James stumbling after me, his curses following me like a toxic cloud. I burst into the nursery, scooping Ethan into my arms. Shh, baby, it's okay, I murmured, even as my own tears threatened to fall. Mommy's here. James appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of drunken fury. Put him down, he growled. This is between us. I clutched Ethan tighter, backing away. Stay back, James. I mean it. He took a menacing step forward. Or what? You'll slap me again? Go ahead. Give me a reason. In that moment, looking into the eyes of the man I once loved, now twisted by alcohol and hate, I knew what I had to do. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Ethan, about giving him the life he deserved. No, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I won't give you anything. Not anymore. I reached for my phone with my free hand, never taking my eyes off James. I'm calling the police, I told him, and then I'm leaving, for good. Something flickered in his eyes, fear, maybe, or a moment of clarity, but it was quickly swallowed by rage. You wouldn't dare, he snarled. I met his gaze, unflinching. Watch me. As I dialed 911, a strange calm settled over me. This was it, the point of no return. But as I held Ethan close, feeling his tiny heart beating against mine, I knew I was making the right choice. The game had changed, and this time I was playing for keeps. The gym locker room echoed with the sound of my labored breathing as I stared at my reflection in the mirror. 3 months had passed since that fateful night when I'd finally stood up to James. Now, here I was, drenched in sweat, my muscles aching, but a fire burning in my eyes that I hadn't seen in years. You're killing it, Alicia, Sarah, my personal trainer, said as she poked her head into the locker room. Same time tomorrow? I nodded, managing a smile. Wouldn't miss it for the world. As Sarah left, I allowed myself a moment of pride. The woman in the mirror was changing, not just physically, but mentally. The soft, pliable Alicia who'd let James walk all over her was fading away, replaced by someone stronger, fiercer. Back home, I found my mother, Barbara, playing with Ethan on the living room floor. She'd been my rock these past months, moving in to help with Ethan while I focused on rebuilding myself. "How was the gym, sweetheart?" she asked, scooping up Ethan as I bent to kiss his forehead. "Brutal," I admitted, "but in a good way. I feel alive." Barbara's eyes crinkled with a mixture of pride and concern. "And James? Any word?" I shook my head. After that night, James had moved out, alternating between begging for forgiveness and hurling threats. But I'd held firm, focusing on myself and Ethan. "His lawyer called again," I said, sinking onto the couch. "They're pushing for joint custody." Barbara's face hardened. "Over my dead body. After what he did." "I know, Mom," I interrupted gently, "but the court doesn't see it that way, without concrete evidence of abuse." The words hung heavy in the air. We both knew what was at stake. If James got joint custody, all my efforts to protect Ethan could be undone. As if sensing the tension, Ethan began to fuss. I took him from Barbara, breathing in his sweet baby scent. "It's okay, little man," I murmured. "Mommy's got you." Later that night, after putting Ethan to bed, I sat at the kitchen table poring over legal documents. The custody battle loomed, a dark cloud on the horizon of my newfound strength. A text message lit up my phone. "James, miss me yet? You can't keep my son from me forever. I'll see you in court, bitch." My hands shook as I set the phone down. How dare he? After everything he'd done, he still thought he had the upper hand. In that moment, something crystallized within me. This wasn't just about getting back at James anymore. This was about protecting Ethan, about breaking the cycle of abuse before it could touch my son. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Alicia? It's late. Is everything okay?" "Detective Rodriguez," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Remember when you said to call if I ever wanted to press charges? I'm ready." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure about this, Alicia? Once we start, there's no going back." I looked at the baby monitor, watching Ethan's peaceful, sleeping face. Then my eyes drifted to the mirror in the hallway, catching my reflection. The woman staring back at me wasn't a victim anymore. She was a fighter. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "It's time James faced the consequences of his actions, and I'm going to make damn sure he never hurts us again." As I hung up, a mix of fear and determination coursed through me. The path ahead would be hard, but I was ready. James wanted a fight. He was about to get one he'd never see coming. The game had changed, and this time I was playing for keeps. For Ethan. For myself. And for every woman who'd ever been told she wasn't enough. "Watch out, James. The new Alicia is coming for you, and she's not holding back." I stood in front of the full-length mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at me. 6 months of grueling workouts, strict dieting, and sheer determination had transformed my body. The soft, postpartum curves James had so cruelly mocked were replaced by lean muscle and renewed confidence. "Alicia?" Mom called from downstairs. "James is here for his visitation with Ethan." My stomach clenched. Despite the restraining order, the court had granted James supervised visits. I took a deep breath, smoothing down my form-fitting workout clothes. Time to face the music. As I descended the stairs, I heard James's voice, thick with false charm. "There's my big boy, come to Daddy." I rounded the corner to find James, looking disheveled and slightly bloated, awkwardly holding Ethan. His eyes widened as they landed on me, a flicker of something, shock, desire, crossing his face before he masked it with a sneer. "Well, well," he drawled. "Look who finally decided to take care of herself." I bit back a retort, focusing instead on Ethan. "Hey, sweetie, Mommy's right here if you need me, okay?" James scoffed. "He doesn't need you hovering. Do you, champ?" He bounced Ethan roughly, causing him to whimper. "Careful," I snapped, instinctively reaching for my son. James pulled away, his eyes narrowing. "Back off. It's my time with him." The tension in the room was palpable. Mom stepped in, ever the peacekeeper. "Why don't we all sit down? I've made some snacks." As we moved to the living room, I couldn't help but notice James's labored breathing, the way his shirt strained against his expanding waistline. My secret weapon, weekly deliveries of high-calorie, irresistible treats to his apartment, was clearly working. James plopped onto the couch, immediately reaching for the plate of cookies. "At least someone in this house knows how to treat a guest," he mumbled through a mouthful of crumbs. I perched on the edge of an armchair, watching him like a hawk as he interacted with Ethan. Despite his bravado, it was clear he had no idea how to handle a baby. "So," James said, eyeing me over Ethan's head, "you've been busy, huh? Trying to relive your glory days?" I met his gaze steadily. "I've been taking care of myself, something you might want to consider." His face flushed red. "Watch it, Alicia. Don't forget who made you who you are." "Oh, I haven't forgotten," I replied, my voice low and dangerous. "I remember everything." The air crackled with unspoken threats. Ethan, sensing the tension, began to cry. James looked panicked, holding him at arm's length. "Here," I said, standing up. "Let me." "I said back off," James snapped, jerking away. In his haste, he lost his grip on Ethan. Time seemed to slow down. I lunged forward, my heart in my throat, as Ethan slipped from James's grasp. By some miracle, I managed to catch him just before he hit the floor. "Oh my God," Mom gasped, rushing to our side. I clutched Ethan to my chest, my whole body shaking. James stood frozen, his face ashen. "I didn't mean to," he stammered. White-hot rage coursed through me. "Get out," I hissed. "Get out now." "Alicia, please, it was an accident." "An accident," I exploded. "You could have seriously hurt him. This ends now, James. No more visits, no more chances. I'm calling my lawyer, and I'm going for full custody." James's face contorted with fury. "You can't do that. He's my son, too." "A son you just dropped," I shouted back. "Leave, James, before I call the police." For a moment I thought he might lunge at me, but then, deflating like a punctured balloon, he turned and stomped out, slamming the door behind him. As the echo faded, I sank to the floor, still cradling Ethan. Mom knelt beside us, her hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked softly. I looked down at Ethan, his tiny fingers curled around mine, his eyes wide with trust. In that moment I knew there was no going back. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about protecting my child, no matter the cost. "No," I said, my voice steady despite the tears, threatening to fall. "But I will be. We both will be." As I held my son close, a steely resolve settled over me. James had no idea what was coming, but he was about to find out just how far a mother would go to protect her child. "Mommy, do I have to go?" Ethan's small voice quivered as I helped him into his coat. My heart clenched, but I forced a smile. "It's just for the weekend, sweetie. Remember what we talked about? Daddy misses you." 4 years had passed since that fateful day when James nearly dropped Ethan. Despite my best efforts, the court had recently granted James unsupervised weekend visits. The thought of Ethan alone with him made my stomach churn. A car horn blared outside. James, impatient as ever. "Come on, champ!" James called from the driveway, his voice overly cheerful. "We've got a big weekend planned." I walked Ethan out, my grip on his hand perhaps a little too tight. James stood by his car, a far cry from the fit man I'd married. Years of my special deliveries and his own neglect had taken their toll. He was easily 100 pounds heavier, his once chiseled face now puffy and red. "Hey, big guy!" James scooped Ethan up, grunting with the effort. "Ready for some man time?" Ethan nodded hesitantly, looking back at me. I swallowed hard, pushing down the urge to snatch him back. "Be good for Daddy, okay?" I said, kissing his forehead. Then, to James, my voice low and steely, "Remember, he has swimming lessons tomorrow at 10. Don't be late." James rolled his eyes. "Relax, Alicia. I've got this. Maybe if you weren't so busy at that gym of yours, you'd trust me more." I bit back a retort. My job at the fitness club had been a godsend, not just financially, but for my sanity. Plus, it gave me access to resources I needed for the next phase of my plan. As they drove away, I felt a familiar mix of anger and fear bubbling up. I needed to channel it, to stay focused. I headed to the gym, throwing myself into a punishing workout. Hours later, drenched in sweat and pleasantly sore, I checked my phone. No messages from James. I tried not to worry. He wouldn't dare mess this up, not when he was finally getting what he wanted. Sunday afternoon arrived with agonizing slowness. I paced the living room, checking the clock every few minutes. They were late. Very late. Just as I was about to call, I heard a car door slam. I rushed outside to find James struggling to get Ethan out of the car seat. "What happened?" I demanded, taking in Ethan's tear-stained face and James' disheveled appearance. "Nothing," James snapped. "Traffic was bad." But as Ethan ran to me, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A small angry bruise on his arm. "Ethan," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But how did you get this bruise?" Before he could answer, James cut in. He fell at the park. Kids, you know. Always getting into scrapes. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes wide and fearful. In that moment, I knew James was lying. "Go inside, sweetie," I said softly. "Grandma's waiting with a surprise." As soon as Ethan was out of earshot, I rounded on James. "What really happened?" James's face darkened. "I told you he fell. Are you calling me a liar?" "Wouldn't be the first time," I shot back. "If I find out you laid a hand on him..." "You'll what?" James sneered, stepping closer. "Face it, Alicia. You've got nothing on me. The court sees what I want them to see, a loving father who deserves time with his son." For a moment I saw red. All the pain, all the humiliation he'd put me through over the years came rushing back. But then something shifted. A calm, cold determination settled over me. "You're right, James," I said, my voice steady. "The court sees what you want them to see. For now." His eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled, a predator's smile. "You'll find out soon enough. Enjoy your visitations while you can." As I turned to go inside, James called out, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "You can't take him from me, Alicia. He's my son, too." I paused at the door, looking back at the pathetic, bloated shell of the man I once loved. "Watch me," I said softly, and closed the door on his stunned face. Inside, I hugged Ethan close, my mind racing. The final phase of my plan was set. James had no idea what was coming, but he was about to learn a very painful lesson. The game was almost over, and I was holding all the cards. The quaint bell above the cafe door chimed as I stepped inside, my heart pounding beneath my carefully chosen outfit. James's parents, John and Kathy, looked up from behind the counter, their smiles faltering as they took in my transformed appearance. "Alicia," Kathy gasped, "is that really you?" I smiled, a predator's grin. "In the flesh. Thanks for agreeing to this little family gathering." John's eyes narrowed. "James said you had something important to discuss. He's on his way." As if on cue, the bell chimed again. James lumbered in, his face flushed from the short walk from the parking lot. He froze when he saw me, his jaw dropping comically. "What the hell is this?" he sputtered. I turned to face him, relishing the shock in his eyes. "Hello, James. So glad you could join us." Kathy, ever the peacemaker, gestured to a table. "Why don't we all sit down? I've prepared some refreshments." As we settled in, the tension was palpable. James couldn't take his eyes off me, a mix of desire and anger clouding his features. His parents exchanged worried glances. "Where's Ethan?" James demanded. "Safe with my mother," I replied coolly. "This conversation isn't for children's ears." John leaned forward. "Alicia, what's going on? You said this was urgent." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "It is. I'm here to talk about James, about the kind of man your son really is." James's face darkened. "Watch it, Alicia," he growled, but I was done being silenced. "For years," I continued, my voice steady, "James has been emotionally and verbally abusive. He's belittled me, mocked my appearance after giving birth to his child, and neglected his duties as a father." Kathy gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. John's brow furrowed in disbelief. "That's ridiculous," James scoffed. "Don't listen to her. She's clearly lost her mind." I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over the play button. "Would you like to hear it for yourself?" The color drained from James's face as I played the recordings. His cruel words, his drunken rants, the sound of objects being thrown, all preserved in damning clarity. "My God," John whispered, his face ashen. Kathy reached for James's hand. "Sweetheart, is this true?" James jerked away, his eyes wild. "She set me up. She's been planning this all along." I met his gaze, unflinching. "You're right, James. I have been planning to free myself and our son from your toxicity." I turned to his parents, my voice softening. "There's more. Last weekend, Ethan came home with bruises. James claims he fell, but... You bitch." James roared, lunging across the table. His meaty hands closed around my throat, knocking us both to the ground. For a moment, panic seized me. Then years of training kicked in. I brought my knee up sharply, connecting with his soft underbelly. As he wheezed, I twisted, breaking his grip and pinning him to the floor. "That's enough!" John's voice boomed as he and Kathy pulled us apart. I stood, straightening my clothes, my composure intact. James sprawled on the floor, red-faced and panting. "I'm pressing charges," I said calmly, "for assault and for what he did to Ethan. I have photographs, medical reports, everything." Kathy sobbed quietly, while John looked at his son with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. "James," he said, his voice heavy, Is this who you've become? James struggled to his feet, his eyes darting around like a cornered animal. You can't do this, he wheezed. I'll lose everything. I met his gaze, years of pain and anger crystallizing into cold determination. You should have thought of that before you laid a hand on our son. As James crumpled, the fight finally leaving him, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle wasn't over. There would be court dates, custody hearings, and no doubt more of James's desperate attempts to maintain control. But standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of the life I'd once known, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The old Alicia was gone. In her place stood a warrior, a protector, a survivor, and God help anyone who tried to stand in my way. The courtroom fell silent as I approached the stand, my heels clicking against the polished floor. James sat at the defendant's table, a shadow of his former self, his expensive suit hanging loosely on his frame. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw a flicker of the old arrogance there, quickly replaced by fear. Mrs. Henderson, the judge said, you may begin your testimony. I took a deep breath, my hand resting on the thick folder of evidence I'd compiled over the years. Your Honor, I'm here today not just as James Henderson's soon-to-be ex-wife, but as a survivor of years of emotional and physical abuse. For the next hour, I laid bare the ugly truth of my marriage, the cruel taunts about my postpartum body, the neglect of our son, the escalating aggression that culminated in Ethan's bruises. With each revelation, I felt lighter, as if shedding the weight of secrets I'd carried for too long. James's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, a scorned woman out for revenge. But the evidence spoke for itself, the recordings, the photographs, the medical reports. Even James's parents, sitting stiffly in the gallery, couldn't meet my eyes. As I finished my testimony, the judge leaned forward. Mrs. Henderson, given everything you've endured, what do you hope to achieve here today? I straightened my shoulders, my voice steady. Your Honor, I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for justice and for protection. I want full custody of my son, and I want James to get the help he clearly needs. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. James's face contorted with rage, but a warning look from his lawyer silenced him. The judge nodded thoughtfully. And the divorce papers you've submitted? I allowed myself a small smile. Those are long overdue, Your Honor. As I returned to my seat, I caught sight of my mother in the audience, tears streaming down her face. She mouthed, I'm so proud of you, and I felt a surge of gratitude for her unwavering support. The rest of the proceedings passed in a blur. When the judge finally delivered her verdict granting me full custody and approving the divorce, I felt a curious mix of elation and exhaustion. James, his face ashen, was led away in handcuffs to await sentencing for child endangerment. As he passed me, he leaned in and hissed, This isn't over, Alicia. I met his gaze calmly. Yes, James, it is. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a flurry of reporters, I spotted John and Kathy hovering uncertainly at the edge of the crowd. I made my way over to them, my heart heavy but resolute. Alicia, Kathy began, her voice trembling. We had no idea, all those years. John cut in, his face lined with shame. We failed you, and we failed our grandson. Can you ever forgive us? I took a deep breath, considering my words carefully. It's not about forgiveness right now. It's about moving forward. Ethan will need his grandparents in his life. If you're willing to be there for him, really be there, then we can work on rebuilding. They nodded eagerly, tears in their eyes. As they walked away, I felt a chapter of my life closing. My mother appeared at my side, wrapping an arm around me. Ready to go home, sweetheart? Home. The word held new meaning now. Not a battleground, not a prison, but a sanctuary for me and my son. More than ready, I replied, smiling. As we drove away, leaving the courthouse and the remnants of my old life behind, I felt a sense of peace settling over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Single motherhood, healing from trauma, rebuilding my life. But for the first time in years, I was excited for the future. The woman who had entered that courtroom was not the same one leaving it. I was stronger now, wiser, unbreakable. James had tried to diminish me, to break my spirit, but in the end, he'd only fueled my transformation. I thought of Ethan waiting for me at home and smiled. We had a whole new life ahead of us, full of love, laughter, and endless possibilities. The game was over, and this time we had both won. The ultrasound image trembled in my hands, a grainy black and white snapshot of betrayal. I stared at Thomas, my husband of 6 years, waiting for him to say it was all a mistake. But his eyes, usually warm and reassuring, now avoided mine. "Evelyn, I know this is a shock," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "But Adeline needs our help." I slammed the picture onto the kitchen counter. "Your sister is pregnant? And you want us to raise her child?" The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Thomas ran a hand through his graying hair. "She can't keep it. The father, he's married. It would ruin everything." "And what about us, Thomas? What about our plans?" I could feel my carefully constructed world crumbling around me. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "We always said we'd wait to have children. Our careers, our travels. This isn't our child, Evelyn. It's different." I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "Different? How is raising your irresponsible sister's baby any different?" The doorbell rang, shattering the tense silence between us. Thomas looked relieved at the interruption. "That'll be Mom and Dad. They wanted to talk about the situation." "Great, just great." I smoothed my hair and took a deep breath, steeling myself for the onslaught of Margaret and Joseph's misplaced concern. As soon as they entered, Margaret enveloped me in a perfume-scented hug. "Oh, Evelyn, dear, how are you holding up?" I extracted myself from her embrace. "I'm fine, Margaret, though I'd be better if someone had bothered to consult me about this arrangement." Joseph cleared his throat. "Now, Evelyn, we all need to pull together as a family. Adeline made a mistake, but a mistake?" I interrupted. "Getting a parking ticket is a mistake. This is a life-altering decision that affects all of us." Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. "Honey, please, let's just hear them out." But I shrugged him off and turned to face my in-laws. "No, Thomas. I want to know why everyone seems to think it's okay to make decisions about my life without even asking me." Margaret's face crumpled. "But, dear, we thought you'd be happy. You and Thomas have been married for so long and no children." "By choice," I exploded. "We chose not to have children. We have goals, dreams, and now you all want to throw that away because Adeline couldn't be bothered with birth control?" The room fell silent. I could see the shock on their faces, but I was beyond caring. Joseph was the first to speak. "Evelyn, I know this is difficult, but Adeline is family. We can't turn our backs on her." "And what about me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Am I not family too?" Thomas reached for me again. "Of course you are. That's why we need you. Adeline can't do this alone." I stepped back, suddenly feeling claustrophobic in my own home. "I need some air," I muttered, grabbing my keys from the hook by the door. "Evelyn, wait!" Thomas called after me, but I was already halfway down the driveway. As I slid into the driver's seat of my car, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. The woman staring back at me looked lost, angry, and more than a little scared. I started the engine, not sure where I was going, but knowing I couldn't stay in that house a moment longer. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. "Please come back. We need to talk about this." I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pulled out of the driveway. As I drove away from the life I thought I knew, one thought kept echoing in my mind. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? I found myself parked outside the small art gallery where Thomas and I first met. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 years ago, this place held the promise of a bright future. Now it felt like a monument to shattered dreams. My phone buzzed again. "Thomas." I ignored it, letting my mind wander back to those early days. We were so in sync then, sharing our hopes and plans over late-night coffee and scribbled notes. "We'll travel the world," Thomas had said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Write my novels, showcase your jewelry, no kids to tie us down." I'd agreed wholeheartedly. We'd build our careers, see the places we'd only dreamed of, and then maybe we'd consider starting a family. But now, a tap on my window startled me out of my reverie. It was Claire, my best friend and fellow jewelry designer. "Evelyn, what are you doing here?" Her concerned face peered in at me. I rolled down the window, forcing a smile. "Just reminiscing, I guess." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Thomas called me. He's worried sick. What's going on?" I sighed, unlocking the door. "Get in. It's a long story." As Claire settled into the passenger seat, I spilled everything. Adeline's pregnancy, Thomas's decision, the ambush with his parents. With each word, the anger I'd been holding back bubbled to the surface. They just expect me to give up everything we've worked for, I finished, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Our dreams, our plans, none of it matters because precious Adeline screwed up again. Claire placed a hand on my arm. Oh, Ev, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I shook my head. I don't know. I can't just abandon our life together, but I can't raise Adeline's child either. It's not fair. Have you told Thomas how you feel? I laughed bitterly. He's not listening. None of them are. It's like I don't even exist in this equation. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Adeline. Please come home. We need to talk. I showed Claire the message, my jaw clenching. See? Now she wants to talk, after everything's been decided. Claire squeezed my hand. Maybe this is your chance to make them listen. Go home, Evelyn. Fight for what you want. I nodded slowly, starting the car. You're right. It's time they heard me. When I pulled into our driveway, I was surprised to see Adeline's car parked haphazardly near the garage. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the house. The scene that greeted me was chaos. Adeline was sobbing on the couch while Margaret hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Thomas and Joseph were in a heated discussion by the fireplace. All eyes turned to me as I entered. Evelyn, Thomas rushed over. Thank God you're back. We have a situation. I raised an eyebrow. Another one? Adeline hiccuped through her tears. The father, he found out. He's threatening to tell his wife everything if I don't get rid of the baby. My heart sank, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated. What do you want to do, Adeline? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. She looked up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. I don't know. I can't have an abortion, but I can't keep it either. Thomas said. He said you'd help. I felt all the air leave my lungs. Did he now? Thomas at least had the decency to look ashamed. Evelyn, I know we should have discussed this first, but no, I cut him off. No more excuses, Thomas. This isn't just about Adeline anymore. This is about us, our marriage, our future. The room fell silent. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, but for once I didn't care. I won't do it, I said firmly. I won't give up my life, my dreams, to clean up someone else's mess, not even family. Margaret gasped. Evelyn, how can you be so selfish? I turned to her, years of pent-up frustration finally boiling over. Selfish? You want to talk about selfish? Let's talk about how you've enabled Adeline's behavior for years. Let's talk about how you're all so quick to sacrifice my happiness without a second thought. I looked at each of them in turn, ending with Thomas. If you want to raise this child, fine, but you'll do it without me. With that, I turned and walked out, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. As I closed the door behind me, I realized with startling clarity that nothing would ever be the same again. I sat in my studio, surrounded by half-finished jewelry pieces, trying to lose myself in work. But my mind kept drifting back to the chaos of the past few days. The doorbell rang, startling me out of my thoughts. I opened it to find Joseph standing there, looking uncomfortable. Evelyn, can we talk? He asked, his voice gruff. I hesitated, then nodded, letting him in. We sat in tense silence for a moment before he spoke. I know you're upset about all this, he began, but you have to understand, Adeline's always been delicate. I couldn't help but scoff. Delicate? Is that what we're calling it now? Joseph's face reddened. Now listen here. You don't know what it was like raising her. The tantrums, the rebellions. And whose fault is that? I shot back. You and Margaret have been cleaning up her messes for years. When does it stop? He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. We just wanted to protect her. And what about protecting your son's marriage? What about me? Joseph sighed heavily. Evelyn, you have to understand, family comes first. I thought I was family, I said quietly. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. Turn on the news, Channel 5, now. Frowning, I grabbed the remote and switched on the TV. My jaw dropped as I saw Adeline's face plastered across the screen. Local model Adeline Hartley has come forward with shocking allegations against prominent businessman Robert Caldwell. Hartley claims Caldwell is the father of her unborn child and has been pressuring her to terminate the pregnancy. I turned to Joseph, who looked as stunned as I felt. Did you know about this? He shook his head. She never said. Oh, God, Margaret's going to have a fit. As if on cue, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from Thomas, missed calls from Margaret, even a message from Adeline herself. I'm sorry. I had to do something. I turned back to Joseph. This changes everything, doesn't it? He nodded slowly. Robert Caldwell. He's not just any businessman. He's running for mayor. If this gets out... It's already out, I said, gesturing to the TV. What was Adeline thinking? Joseph's phone rang. He answered it, his voice strained. Yes, Margaret, I'm seeing it now. No, I'm with Evelyn. We'll be right there. He hung up and looked at me pleadingly. Evelyn, I know you're angry, but we need you, please. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Part of me wanted to refuse, to let them deal with the mess they'd created. But another part, fine, I said finally. But this is the last time. After this, I'm done cleaning up after Adeline. The drive to Thomas and Adeline's parents' house was tense. When we arrived, the scene was chaos. Margaret was in tears, Thomas was pacing, and Adeline was nowhere to be seen. Where is she? I demanded. Thomas ran a hand through his hair. She's not answering her phone. We think she might have gone to confront Caldwell. My blood ran cold. Are you kidding me after that stunt on the news? Margaret sobbed harder. My poor baby, what if he hurts her? I bit back a retort about Adeline hurting herself with her own actions. Instead, I turned to Thomas. We need to find her. Now. He nodded, grabbing his keys. As we headed for the door, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back at me looked tired, angry, and scared. But there was something else there, too. Determination. I realized then that this wasn't just about Adeline anymore. This was about standing up to years of enabling behavior, of misplaced priorities. As we stepped out into the night, I made a silent vow. This would be the last time I let Adeline's drama dictate my life. One way or another, things were going to change. The months following Adeline's televised scandal were a blur of tense silences and cold shoulders. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours in my studio, crafting intricate pieces that seemed to reflect the tangled mess of my life. Thomas and I barely spoke, our conversations reduced to clipped exchanges about household chores and bills. One crisp autumn morning, I woke to the sound of Thomas's phone ringing. His muffled voice drifted through the walls, urgent and worried. I tried to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. I crept to the door, straining to hear. Adeline, calm down. Where are you? The hospital? What happened? My heart sank. Of course it was Adeline. It was always Adeline. Thomas burst into our bedroom, his face pale. Evelyn, we need to go. Adeline's in labor. I stared at him, disbelief and anger warring inside me. And his eyes widened. And Evelyn, she needs us. She's scared and alone. She made her choices. Thomas, why is it always our job to pick up the pieces? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. Because she's family. Please, Evelyn, I can't do this alone. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of years of resentment pressing down on me, but beneath it all there was a tiny flicker of something else. Compassion? Duty? I wasn't sure. Fine, I said, my voice tight, but this is the last time. The drive to the hospital was tense, filled with unspoken words and simmering emotions. When we arrived, we found Adeline in a private room, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Oh, thank God you're here, she sobbed, reaching for Thomas. He rushed to her side, leaving me standing awkwardly by the door. Hours passed in a haze of doctors, nurses, and Adeline's screams. I found myself pacing the hallway, unable to bear the suffocating atmosphere of the delivery room. As dawn broke, a tiny cry pierced the air. Thomas emerged, his face a mix of exhaustion and wonder. It's a girl, he said softly. She's beautiful. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He hesitated, then added, Adeline, she wants to see you. Steeling myself, I entered the room. Adeline lay in the bed, cradling a small bundle. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed and pleading. Evelyn, she whispered, I'm so sorry for everything. I can't do this. I'm not ready to be a mother. I felt a chill run down my spine. What are you saying, Adeline? She looked down at the baby, then back at me. I want you and Thomas to raise her. Please, you're the only ones I trust. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stared at her, unable to process what I was hearing. You can't be serious, Adeline. This is your child. I know, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I'll only mess her up. You and Thomas, you can give her the life she deserves. Before I could respond, Thomas appeared at my side. What's going on? I turned to him, my voice barely above a whisper. She wants us to take the baby. His eyes widened, a mix of shock and, was that hope? Evelyn, maybe we should consider— No, I cut him off, my voice sharp. Absolutely not. We agreed, Thomas. No children. Not now, not like this. Adeline's sobs grew louder. Please, Evelyn, I don't know what else to do. I looked from her to Thomas, to the tiny bundle in Adeline's arms. The baby stirred, letting out a soft coo. Something inside me cracked. I need air, I muttered, pushing past Thomas and out of the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment that would define everything. I could walk away now, leave this mess behind and salvage what was left of my life with Thomas. Or I could stay, accept this responsibility that was never meant to be mine. As I stood there, torn between duty and desire, I realized that whatever choice I made, nothing would ever be the same again. The baby's cries echoed through our once peaceful home, a constant reminder of how drastically our lives had changed. It had been 2 weeks since we'd brought Adeline's daughter home, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of diapers, sleepless nights, and unspoken resentment. I stood in the nursery, gently rocking the infant, when Thomas appeared in the doorway. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, mirroring my own. Evelyn, he said softly, we need to talk. I nodded, placing the now sleeping baby in her crib. We made our way to the kitchen, where I mechanically started brewing coffee. The silence between us was thick with tension. Thomas cleared his throat. I've been thinking about our situation. I braced myself, knowing whatever he was about to say would change everything. I think, he continued, it might be best if you quit your job. The mug I was holding slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. What? Thomas flinched, but pressed on. Just temporarily. The baby needs constant care, and my writing deadlines are piling up. We can't afford a full-time nanny, and your jewelry business, well, it's not exactly bringing in steady income. I stared at him, disbelief and rage warring inside me. My business, the one I've poured my heart and soul into for years, the one that was supposed to fund our travels, our dreams. Evelyn, please, Thomas pleaded. This isn't forever, just until we figure things out. Figure things out? I laughed bitterly. Thomas, we didn't figure out having a baby. Your sister dumped her responsibilities on us and you just went along with it, and now you want me to give up everything I've worked for? His face hardened. This isn't just about you, Evelyn. We have a child to think about now. She's not our child, I exploded. She's Adeline's, and once again we're expected to clean up her mess. Thomas's eyes flashed with anger. How can you be so cold? That little girl in there needs us. She's innocent in all this. And I'm not, I shot back. I didn't ask for any of this, Thomas. We had plans, dreams. What happened to those? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. Life happened, Evelyn. Sometimes we have to adapt. Adapt? I echoed. Is that what you call completely derailing our lives for your irresponsible sister? Thomas's face fell, a mix of disappointment and resignation. I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd want to help. Help? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. I've been helping. I've been up every night, changing diapers, feeding her. I've put my work on hold, but this is too much. I turned away, trying to collect my thoughts. When I faced Thomas again, my decision was made. I won't do it, Thomas. I won't give up my career, my identity, for this. His eyes widened in shock. Evelyn, please, we can work this out. But I was already moving, grabbing my keys and purse. I need some time to think, I don't know, but I can't be here right now. Where are you going? Thomas called after me, panic edging into his voice. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob. I don't know. But I do know this. If you make me choose between my life and Adeline's baby, you won't like the choice I make. As I stepped out into the cool evening air, I heard the baby start to cry again. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears of my own. This wasn't the life I'd signed up for, not the future we'd planned together. Walking to my car, I realized with startling clarity that I was at a crossroads. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to give. As I drove away from the house, from Thomas, from the life that had been thrust upon me, I made a silent vow. It was time to reclaim my life, my dreams, and if that meant walking away from everything I'd known, then so be it. The lawyer's office felt suffocating, the air thick with tension and unspoken accusations. I sat across from Thomas, avoiding his gaze as our attorney droned on about asset division and custody arrangements. Custody. For a child that wasn't even ours. Mrs. Hartley, the lawyer's voice cut through my thoughts, have you come to a decision about visitation rights for your niece? I flinched at the word niece. It felt wrong, like a poorly fitting garment. I don't think that's necessary, I managed to say. Thomas's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Evelyn, you can't be serious. She's family. Is she? I shot back, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Or is she just another one of Adeline's messes that we're expected to clean up? The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should take a short recess. But Thomas was already on his feet, his face flushed with anger. How can you be so cold? That little girl needs us. I stood too, my hands shaking. And what about what I need, Thomas? What about our dreams, our plans? Do they mean nothing now? Before he could respond, the office door burst open. Margaret and Joseph stormed in, their faces twisted with righteous indignation. How dare you? Margaret shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at me. How dare you abandon that innocent child? I stumbled back, overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught. This isn't. Joseph stepped forward, his voice low and menacing. We always knew you were too practical, too career-focused, but we never thought you'd be cruel. The room spun around me, accusations flying from all sides. I caught fragments of their tirade, selfish, heartless, unfit to be a mother. Each word felt like a physical blow. Enough, I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. The room fell silent, all eyes on me. You want to talk about cruelty? I said, my voice shaking with emotion. Let's talk about how you've enabled Adeline's behavior for years. Let's talk about how you've consistently put her needs above everyone else's, including your own son's. I turned to Thomas, tears stinging my eyes. And you? You promised me a life of adventure, of shared dreams. But the moment Adeline snapped her fingers, you were ready to throw it all away. Evelyn, please, Thomas pleaded, reaching for my hand. I jerked away. No, I said, my resolve hardening. I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one, the one who has to sacrifice everything for someone else's mistakes. I grabbed the divorce papers from the lawyer's desk, scrawling my signature across the bottom. There. It's done. The room erupted into chaos. Margaret wailed, Joseph shouted, and Thomas just stared at me, a mix of shock and sorrow etched across his face. As I turned to leave, he caught my arm. Evelyn, wait. We can work this out. Please, don't throw away 6 years of marriage. I looked into his eyes, searching for the man I'd fallen in love with. But all I saw was a stranger, someone whose priorities had shifted so dramatically that I no longer recognized him. It's not me throwing it away, Thomas, I said softly. You did that the moment you chose Adeline's drama over our life together. With that, I walked out of the office, out of the building, and into the bright sunlight. My legs felt weak, my heart racing as the magnitude of what I'd just done washed over me. As I stood on the sidewalk, untethered and alone for the first time in years, a strange mix of terror and exhilaration coursed through me. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was finally free to find out on my own terms. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Claire. How did it go? Are you okay? I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the keypad. Was I okay? I honestly didn't know. But as I looked up at the vast sky above me, I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, it would be my choice, my life. I typed a quick reply. It's done. Can I stay with you for a while? I think I need a fresh start. As I hit send, I felt the first tentative steps towards a new beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt ready to face it head-on. The gentle hum of my jewelry studio filled the air as I carefully set a sapphire into a delicate silver setting. 3 months had passed since I'd walked away from my old life, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. My small apartment above Claire's garage wasn't much, but it was mine. No drama, no expectations, just peace. The shrill ring of my phone shattered the tranquility. Thomas's name flashed on the screen. My heart raced as I debated answering. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Evelyn? Thomas's voice was strained, panicked. I need your help. It's Dad. He's had a heart attack. The world tilted on its axis. Despite everything, Joseph had been like a father to me for years. Is he? He's stable but critical. Mom's a mess, and I can't handle everything alone. The baby, my deadlines, now this. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of responsibility settling back onto my shoulders. What about Adeline? Thomas's bitter laugh crackled through the line. She's in Bali with her new boyfriend. Unreachable as usual. Of course she was. Some things never changed. Please, Evelyn, Thomas pleaded. I know I have no right to ask, but... I'll be there in an hour, I heard myself say, already reaching for my keys. The hospital was a chaos of beeping machines and hushed whispers. I found Margaret slumped in a chair outside Joseph's room, her face pale and drawn. Oh, Evelyn, she whimpered, reaching for me. I'm so glad you're here. I hesitated, then awkwardly patted her hand. How is he? Stable, but... She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. The doctors say he'll need round-the-clock care when he comes home. I don't know how we'll manage. I glanced into Joseph's room, where Thomas stood by the bed, cradling Adeline's baby. The sight of them together sent a pang through my chest, a bittersweet reminder of the life I'd left behind. Thomas looked up, relief washing over his face when he saw me. Evelyn, thank God. Can you take Emma? I need to talk to the doctors. Before I could protest, he was pressing the baby into my arms. Emma gurgled, her tiny hand grasping my finger. I felt my resolve weakening. The next few days passed in a blur of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and frantic juggling of responsibilities. I found myself slipping back into old patterns, coordinating care schedules, fielding calls from concerned relatives, all while trying to keep my fledgling jewelry business afloat. One evening, as I was heating a bottle for Emma, Thomas cornered me in the kitchen. Evelyn, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. I shrugged, avoiding his gaze. It's fine, anyone would do the same. No, they wouldn't, he said softly. You're extraordinary. I was a fool to let you go. My heart stuttered. Thomas, don't... I miss you, he blurted out. We all do. Emma needs a mother, and I need you. For a moment, I let myself imagine it, slipping back into this life, raising Emma, being part of a family again. But then I remembered the suffocation, the loss of self, the constant sacrifices. No, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this again, Thomas. I won't. His face fell. But everything's different now. We could make it work this time. I shook my head, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Nothing's changed. Adeline's still irresponsible. Your parents still enable her. And you? You still expect me to give up everything for someone else's choices. That's not fair, Thomas protested. Isn't it? I countered. Where's Adeline now? Why isn't she here helping her own parents? Thomas had no answer. I handed him the bottle. I'm sorry about your father, and I hope he recovers soon. But I can't stay. This isn't my life anymore. As I turned to leave, Margaret appeared in the doorway, her eyes wild. Joseph's taken a turn for the worse. The doctors say we need to prepare for the worst. Thomas looked at me, desperation etched across his face. Evelyn, please, don't go. Not now. We need you. I stood frozen, torn between the urge to flee and the pull of familiar obligations. In that moment, I realized that the true test of my newfound independence was yet to come. I stood in the hospital hallway, my heart pounding as I watched Thomas and Margaret rush into Joseph's room, the weight of their expectations, their need, pressed down on me like a physical force. For a moment, I wavered, the urge to step in and take control almost overwhelming. But then I heard it, a soft cry from the waiting area. Emma, Adeline's daughter, my almost niece, was awake and fussing in her carrier. As I looked at her, a stark realization hit me. This wasn't my responsibility. It never had been. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd sworn I'd never use again. Hello? Adeline's voice, carefree and slightly slurred, answered on the third ring. Adeline, it's Evelyn. Your father's had a heart attack. He might not make it. You need to come home. Now. There was a long pause, then a sigh. I can't just leave, Evelyn. I'm in the middle of a shoot and... No, I cut her off, my voice hard. No more excuses. This is your family, Adeline. Your daughter. Your responsibility. Not mine. Not anymore. I hung up before she could respond, a strange sense of calm washing over me. I walked back to Joseph's room, where Thomas and Margaret were huddled together, tears streaming down their faces. I've called Adeline. I announced. She's on her way. Thomas looked up, hope and gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you, Evelyn. I don't know what we'd do without you. I shook my head. No, Thomas. This is the last time. I'm not staying. But, Margaret began, but I held up a hand. I'm sorry about Joseph, truly, but this isn't my life anymore. You all need to learn to handle your own problems without expecting me to swoop in and fix everything. I turned to leave, but Thomas caught my arm. Evelyn, please, we can work this out. We can be a family again. For a moment, I let myself imagine it, the life I'd once thought I wanted. But as I looked at Thomas, at Margaret, at little Emma in her carrier, I realized something profound. I didn't want that life anymore. I wanted my own. Goodbye, Thomas, I said softly, gently removing his hand from my arm. Take care of your family. I need to take care of myself now. As I walked out of the hospital, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I glanced at it, then stopped in my tracks. The headline read, Local model Adeline Hartley arrested for theft and fraud. I stared at the screen, a mix of emotions washing over me. Shock, anger, and then relief. It was as if the last thread tying me to my old life had finally snapped. Weeks passed. I threw myself into my work, my jewelry designs gaining recognition in local artisan circles. I heard through the grapevine that Joseph had recovered, that Adeline was facing charges, that Thomas was struggling to balance his writing with single parenthood. But for the first time in years, I felt no obligation to step in and help. One sunny afternoon, as I was putting the finishing touches on a new necklace design, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Claire standing there, a wide smile on her face. Get dressed, she announced. We're going out to celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked, bemused. She thrust a magazine into my hands. There on the cover was a photo of one of my necklaces, with the headline, Rising Star Evelyn Carter's Unique Jewelry Designs Take the Art World by Storm. As I stared at the cover, tears welling in my eyes, I felt a surge of pride and joy unlike anything I'd experienced before. This was my achievement, my dream realized. You did it, Ev, Claire said softly. You found yourself again. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As we headed out into the bright afternoon sun, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it might lead. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Thomas. For a moment, I hesitated, then decisively switched it off. Whatever crisis he was facing, it wasn't mine to solve. My life was my own now, and I was finally truly free to live it on my own terms. The crash of shattering glass jolted me from my fitful sleep. I bolted upright, heart pounding, as Martha's shrill voice pierced the air. Alex! Come quick! I've broken my favorite vase. I groaned, rubbing my eyes as I glanced at the clock. 3:17 a.m. This was the third time this week my mother-in-law had woken us in the middle of the night. I turned to Alex, expecting to see him stirring, but he was already out of bed, rushing to his mother's aid. It's okay, Mom. I heard him soothe from down the hall. We'll get you a new one tomorrow. I sighed, knowing full well who'd be footing the bill for that replacement. As I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my daughter Emily appeared in the doorway, her face etched with worry. Is everything all right, Mom? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. I forced a smile. Everything's fine, sweetie. Grandma just had a little accident. Go back to bed. Emily hesitated, then nodded and retreated to her room. I followed her out, determined to assess the damage. As I approached Martha's room, which used to be our guest room, I overheard her conversation with Alex. Oh, darling, it was such a beautiful piece. Imported from Italy, you know. I simply must have another one just like it. Of course, Mom, Alex replied, his tone placating. We'll go shopping first thing in the morning. I stepped into view, arms crossed. Alex, can I talk to you for a moment? He looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten I existed. Becky, honey, can't it wait until morning? Mom's upset. It's important, I insisted, my jaw clenched. Alex sighed, patting his mother's hand. I'll be right back, Mom. We stepped into the hallway, and I wasted no time. Alex, we can't afford to keep replacing everything she breaks. Do you know how much that vase cost? He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. I know. But what am I supposed to do? She's grieving, Becky. It's only been 6 months since Dad passed. I understand that, I said, trying to keep my voice low. But she's burning through our savings. The credit card bills are piling up, and Emily needs new clothes for school. Alex's face hardened. My mother needs us right now. Emily can make do with what she has for a little longer. I felt my temper flare. And what about what we need? What about our family? Mom is family? He snapped. Alex? Martha's voice drifted from the bedroom. Is everything all right? Fine, Mom, he called back, then turned to me. We'll discuss this later. Go back to bed. As he retreated to Martha's room, I stood there, seething. This wasn't the first time Alex had chosen his mother's comfort over our family's needs, and I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be the last. I made my way to the kitchen, knowing sleep would elude me now. As I filled the kettle for tea, I noticed a stack of shopping bags in the corner, more of Martha's recent purchases. Curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked inside one of the bags. My breath caught as I pulled out a designer handbag, the price tag still attached. The cost was more than our monthly grocery budget. What are you doing? I whirled around to find Martha standing in the doorway, her eyes narrowed suspiciously. I was just tidying up, I lied, hastily shoving the bag back into place. She sniffed, clearly not believing me. Well, since you're up, be a dear and make me some chamomile tea. This dreadful accident has left me quite shaken. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile. Of course, Martha, coming right up. As I prepared her tea, my mind raced. How much longer could we go on like this? Something had to give, and soon. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a storm that would tear our family apart and force me to fight for everything I held dear. I stared at the credit card statement in disbelief, my hands shaking. The balance had nearly doubled since last month, and I knew exactly why. Martha's shopping sprees were spiraling out of control. Alex, we need to talk, I called out, my voice strained. He sauntered into the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. What's up, honey? I thrust the statement at him. This is what's up. Your mother's spending is out of control. We can't keep living like this. Alex's face hardened as he glanced at the paper. Come on, Becky. It's not that bad. Mom's just trying to feel better after losing Dad. Not that bad, I sputtered. Alex, we're talking thousands of dollars here. On what? Designer clothes? Antiques? Things we don't need and can't afford. He set his mug down with a clank. What do you want me to do? Tell her she can't buy things? She's grieving, Becky. It's been 8 months, Alex. Grief doesn't justify financial ruin. Just then, Martha breezed into the kitchen, decked out in what looked like a brand new "Good morning, dears. Alex, be a love and take me shopping today. I simply must have those new throw pillows I saw in the catalog." I watched in horror as Alex nodded without hesitation. "Sure, Mom. We'll go after breakfast." "Alex," I hissed, but he shot me a warning look. Martha turned to me, her smile sickeningly sweet. "Oh, Becky, I almost forgot. I accidentally spilled some wine on that quilt your grandmother made. I'll need you to take it to the cleaners." My blood ran cold. That quilt was a family heirloom, irreplaceable. "You what?" "It's just a quilt, dear," Martha said dismissively. "No need to get upset." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Alex quickly intervened. "Don't worry, Mom. We'll take care of it." As Martha sashayed out of the kitchen, I rounded on Alex. "How can you let her treat our things, my family heirlooms, like this?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "It was an accident, Becky. Let it go." "Let it go? Like I'm supposed to let go of our savings? Our future? Emily's college fund?" Alex's eyes flashed. "That's enough. I won't have you talking about my mother like this. She's family, and we take care of family." "What about our family?" I shot back. "What about Emily? She needs new clothes for school, but we can't afford them because your mother's buying $500 throw pillows." "We'll figure it out," he said dismissively. "Now, I need to get ready to take Mom shopping." As he walked away, I felt something inside me snap. I grabbed my phone and dialed my sister's number. "Mackenzie? I need to talk. Can we meet for coffee?" An hour later, I sat across from my sister in our favorite cafe, pouring out my frustrations. Mackenzie listened intently, her brow furrowed. "Becky, this isn't healthy. For any of you. Have you considered counseling?" I laughed bitterly. "Alex won't hear of it. He thinks everything's fine." "And what about you?" she asked gently. "What do you think?" I stared into my coffee, fighting back tears. I think I'm losing my husband and my sanity." Mackenzie reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You need to stand up for yourself, Becky. For Emily, too. This can't go on." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Mom wants to redo the guest room. Picking out furniture now. Don't wait up." I showed Mackenzie the message, my hands trembling with anger. Her eyes widened. The guest room? Isn't that where Emily's been sleeping since Martha moved in? I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. What am I going to do, Mac? How did it come to this? Mackenzie's gaze hardened with determination. You're going to fight, sis. It's time to take back control of your life, and I'll be right here to help you do it. As I left the cafe, a mix of fear and resolve churned in my stomach. I knew a storm was coming, and I had to be ready to weather it, for myself and for Emily. I stood in the doorway of Emily's room, my heart sinking as I watched her pack her belongings into cardboard boxes. The hurt in her eyes was palpable, and it tore at my soul. "Mom, why do I have to move?" Emily asked, her voice cracking. "This is my room." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. "I know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Your father thinks it's best if Grandma has more space." Emily slammed a book into a box. "More space? For what? Her stupid antiques?" Before I could respond, Alex appeared behind me. "What's going on here?" I turned to face him, steeling myself. "Emily's upset about moving rooms, and frankly, so am I." Alex's jaw tightened. "We've been over this, Becky. Mom needs the extra space." "For what?" I challenged. "Her endless shopping sprees?" "That's enough," Alex snapped. "Emily, finish packing. You're moving to the basement today." Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. "The basement? But it's cold and damp down there." I couldn't hold back any longer. "Alex, this is ridiculous. You can't put our daughter in the basement." He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the hallway. "I said that's enough. This isn't up for discussion." I yanked my arm free, fury building inside me. "Like hell it isn't. This is our daughter we're talking about." "Mom's comfort is important too," Alex insisted. "More important than Emily's?" I shot back. Our raised voices drew Martha from her room. She glided towards us, a look of feigned concern on her face. "What's all this fuss about?" Alex turned to his mother, his voice softening. "It's nothing, Mom. We're just discussing Emily's room change." Martha's eyes lit up. "Oh yes, I can't wait to start decorating. I'm thinking of a Parisian theme. It'll be simply divine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Martha, this is Emily's room. She's lived here her entire life." Martha waved her hand dismissively. "She's young. She'll adapt. Now, Alex dear, I need you to take me shopping for new curtains." I watched in horror as Alex nodded, completely disregarding the pain he was causing his own daughter. Something inside me snapped. "No," I said firmly. Alex and Martha turned to me, shocked. "What did you say?" Alex demanded. "I said no," I repeated, my voice growing stronger. "Emily is not moving to the basement. This is her room, and she's staying in it." Martha's face contorted with anger. "How dare you speak to me like that in my own home?" "Your home," I laughed bitterly. "This is our home. The home Alex and I built together. The home where we raised our daughter." Alex stepped between us. "Becky, you're out of line. Apologize to my mother." I stared at him in disbelief. "Apologize? For what? For standing up for our daughter?" Emily appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Stop it! Just stop fighting!" The sight of my daughter's distress fueled my resolve. I turned to Alex, my voice low and determined. "This ends now. Either Martha goes or Emily and I do." A heavy silence fell over the hallway. Alex's face paled as he realized the gravity of the situation. Martha sputtered indignantly, but for once, she seemed at a loss for words. Emily moved to my side, gripping my hand tightly. I squeezed back, drawing strength from her presence. Alex looked between us and his mother, conflict etched across his face. "Becky, you can't be serious. You wouldn't leave." I met his gaze steadily. "Try me." As we stood there, the air thick with tension, I realized we had reached a turning point. There was no going back now. Whatever happened next would change our family forever. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the storm that was about to break. "So, Alex," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "what's it going to be?" The tension in our house was suffocating. After my ultimatum, Alex had reluctantly agreed to let Emily keep her room, but the rift between us had only widened. Martha, for her part, had retreated into a sullen silence, punctuated by dramatic sighs and pointed glares in my direction. It was in this strained atmosphere that Alex announced his grand plan to fix everything. "We're having a family dinner tonight," he declared over breakfast. "Mom's idea. She wants to smooth things over." I eyed him skeptically. "And how exactly is dinner supposed to fix this?" Alex's smile was strained. "Just give it a chance, Becky, please." Against my better judgment, I agreed. That evening, I found myself helping Martha in the kitchen, chopping vegetables while she stirred a pot on the stove. "I hope you like bouillabaisse," Martha chirped, her tone overly sweet. "It's Alex's favorite." I froze, knife hovering over a carrot. "Bouillabaisse?" "Martha, you know Emily's allergic to shellfish." She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, I'm sure it's not that serious. Besides, she can pick around it." Before I could protest further, Alex walked in. "Smells great, Mom. What are we having?" "Your favorite, dear," Martha beamed. "Bouillabaisse." I waited for Alex to object, to remember his daughter's allergy. Instead, he grinned. "Perfect. I haven't had that in ages." My blood began to boil. "Alex, a word?" I pulled him into the hallway, keeping my voice low. "Have you forgotten about Emily's allergy? She can't eat that." Alex rolled his eyes. "Come on, Becky. It's not like she'll die from it. She can have a salad or something." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "Are you serious right now? This is our daughter's health we're talking about." "You're overreacting," he snapped. "Just let Mom have this, okay? She's trying to make peace." As Alex stormed back to the kitchen, I felt a familiar hand on my shoulder. Emily had overheard everything. "It's okay, Mom," she said softly. "I'll just eat the bread." My heart broke at the resignation in her voice. "No, sweetie, this isn't okay." Dinner was a tense affair. Martha prattled on about her latest shopping finds while Alex nodded along enthusiastically. I pushed food around my plate, my appetite gone. Emily sat silently, nibbling on a piece of bread. "Emily, dear," Martha suddenly addressed her. "You've hardly touched your food. Don't you like Grandma's cooking?" Emily shifted uncomfortably. I can't eat it, Grandma. Remember? I'm allergic to shellfish." Martha's eyes narrowed. "Don't be ridiculous. A little seafood never hurt anyone. You're just being picky." "Mom," Alex interjected, "maybe you could make Emily a sandwich or something." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you kidding me? Your mother makes a meal our daughter is allergic to, and your solution is to have Emily make her own dinner?" Martha huffed. "Well, I certainly didn't slave over a hot stove all day to cater to her imaginary allergies." That was the last straw. Emily burst into tears and ran from the table. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Imaginary?" I seethed. "The last time Emily ate shellfish, she ended up in the hospital. But I guess that was just her imagination too, right?" Alex stood as well, his face red with anger. "That's enough, Becky. You're ruining dinner." "I'm ruining dinner?" I laughed bitterly. "You two are unbelievable. Your own daughter's health means nothing to you." As I turned to go after Emily, Martha's voice stopped me cold. "You know, Alex, I always said you married beneath you, and now look at the ungrateful brats you've raised." The room fell silent. I looked at Alex, waiting for him to defend us, to stand up to his mother at last. But he said nothing. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about tonight's dinner. This was about years of neglect, of choosing his mother over his family. And I was done. I met Alex's gaze, my voice steady. "Pack your bags. Emily and I are leaving tonight." As I walked out of the dining room to comfort my daughter and plan our escape, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Our lives were about to change dramatically. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. I sat on Mackenzie's couch, clutching a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Emily was asleep in the guest room, exhausted from crying. We'd been at my sister's house for 3 days now, and I still felt like I was in a daze. "Becky," Mackenzie said gently, "you need to decide what you're going to do next." I nodded, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "I know. I never thought it would come to this." Mackenzie reached out and squeezed my hand. "Alex has called you a dozen times. Have you listened to any of his messages?" I shook my head. "I can't. Not yet. Every time I think about that dinner, about how he just sat there while Martha—" My voice broke, and Mackenzie pulled me into a hug. "I know, sis, I know." As I pulled away, wiping my eyes, my phone buzzed. Another message from Alex. This time, curiosity got the better of me, and I hit play. "Becky, please," Alex's voice crackled through the speaker. "Come home. We can work this out. Mom's agreed to move into an apartment nearby. Please just give us another chance." I looked at Mackenzie, my heart racing. "He says Martha's moving out." My sister's eyes narrowed. "And you believe that?" The doubt in her voice mirrored my own. I sighed, deleting the message. "No, I don't." Mackenzie nodded, then hesitated. "Becky, there's something you need to see." She pulled out her laptop and opened a series of documents. As I scanned them, my blood ran cold. "What is this?" I whispered. "Bank statements," Mackenzie replied. "I had a friend look into your finances. Alex has been funneling money into a separate account for months, an account in Martha's name." The room spun as the implications hit me. All those times I'd questioned our dwindling savings, all the excuses Alex had made. "He's been lying to me," I said, my voice hollow. "All this time he's been—" "Stealing from you," Mackenzie finished. "From Emily's college fund, from your retirement savings, everything." A wave of nausea washed over me. "How much?" Mackenzie's face was grim. "Almost everything, Becky. If you don't act soon, there might not be anything left." I stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Anger, betrayal, and fear warred within me. What am I going to do? How can I protect Emily, our future? Mackenzie stood, placing her hands on my shoulders to still my frantic movement. "You fight, Becky. You take control. Starting now." She guided me back to the couch and opened another document on her laptop. "I've drafted divorce papers. All you have to do is sign." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. "If I do this," I said slowly, "there's no going back." "Why?" Mackenzie nodded. "No, there isn't. But think about Emily. Think about yourself. You deserve better than this, Becky. Both of you do." As if on cue, Emily appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. "Mom, what's going on?" I looked at my daughter, seeing the strength and resilience that mirrored my own. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. "Come here, sweetie," I said, patting the couch beside me. As Emily sat down, I took a deep breath. "We need to talk about the future. Our future." Emily's eyes widened as she looked at the laptop screen. Are we?" I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. "Yes, honey. I'm filing for divorce. We're starting over." To my surprise, Emily's face broke into a relieved smile. "Good," she said firmly. "We don't need them, Mom. We'll be okay on our own." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged my daughter close. Over her shoulder, I met Mackenzie's gaze and nodded. "You're right," I said, reaching for the pen. "We will be okay." As I signed my name on the divorce papers, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. Hope for a future free from manipulation and betrayal. Hope for a life where Emily and I could thrive. I closed the laptop, my decision made. "Mackenzie, can you call your lawyer friend? It's time to take back our lives." The lawyer's office felt suffocating as I sat across from Alex, the divorce papers between us like a chasm. Mackenzie squeezed my hand under the table, a silent reminder of her support. Emily waited outside, insisting on being here despite my reservations. "You can't be serious about this, Becky," Alex pleaded, his eyes darting between me and the papers. "We can work it out. I'll send Mom to a retirement community, please." I steeled myself against the familiar pull of his words. "It's too late for that, Alex. You've made your choice, time and time again." Our lawyer, Sarah, cleared her throat. "Mr. Drew, we've outlined the division of assets. Given the circumstances, Mrs. Sullivan is entitled to—" "Entitled?" Alex's face contorted with anger. "She's not entitled to anything. It's my money." I felt a surge of righteous fury. "Your money? The money you've been funneling to your mother? The money from our daughter's college fund?" Alex paled, caught off guard. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter," I cut him off. "What matters is that you betrayed us, Alex, me and Emily both." Sarah intervened, her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Drew, given the evidence of financial misconduct, you're facing serious legal consequences. This settlement is more than fair." Alex's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but he shook his head, eyes blazing. "I won't sign. You can't make me." "Then we'll see you in court," Sarah replied coolly. As we stood to leave, the door burst open. Martha stormed in, her face a mask of fury. "You ungrateful witch! How dare you try to ruin my son's life?" Mackenzie stepped between us, but Martha was undeterred. "After everything we've done for you, Alex, don't you dare sign those papers. She doesn't deserve a penny." I watched as Alex's resolve visibly strengthened under his mother's influence. Any hope of an amicable resolution evaporated. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "We'll do this the hard way." As we left the office, Emily rushed to my side. "Mom, what happened?" I hugged her close, my heart breaking at the worry in her eyes. "It's okay, sweetie. We're going to be okay." But as we drove home, the reality of our situation crashed over me. A lengthy court battle would drain what little resources we had left. How would I provide for Emily? How could I fight Alex and Martha's combined resources? At home, I excused myself and retreated to the bathroom, finally allowing the tears to fall. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the uncertainty, the fear, threatened to crush me. A soft knock interrupted my breakdown. "Mom?" Emily's voice called. "Can I come in?" I quickly wiped my eyes and opened the door. Emily took one look at me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "We're going to make it," she said fiercely. "We don't need them. We have each other." Her words, so full of conviction, pierced through my despair. I hugged her back, marveling at her strength. "You're right," I whispered. "We do have each other." As we stood there, I felt a shift inside me. The fear and doubt receded, replaced by a steely determination. Alex and Martha had underestimated me for the last time. I gently pulled away from Emily, meeting her gaze. "Honey, I need you to be strong for a little while longer. Things might get tough, but I promise you, I'm going to fight for us with everything I have." Emily nodded, her jaw set in a determined line that mirrored my own. "I know, Mom, and I'll be right here with you." In that moment, looking at my brave, resilient daughter, I knew I had to win this battle, not just for myself, but for her future, for the life we deserved. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "Okay," I said, more to myself than to Emily. "Let's show them what we're made of." As we walked out of the bathroom together, I felt a newfound resolve coursing through me. The road ahead would be hard, but I was ready to fight, ready to reclaim our lives, and ready to build a future free from Alex and Martha's toxic influence. The real battle was just beginning, and I was prepared to give it everything I had. The moving truck rumbled to life outside our house. No, Alex's house now. I stood in the barren living room, surrounded by empty spaces where our life together once resided. Emily appeared at my side, her face a mix of determination and apprehension. "Is this really happening, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I squeezed her hand. "Yes, sweetie, it's time." As if on cue, the front door burst open. Alex stormed in, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I steeled myself, meeting his gaze. "We're leaving, Alex, for good." His eyes darted around the room, taking in the bare walls and empty spaces. "You can't just take everything. This is my house." "Your house?" I laughed bitterly. "Everything I'm taking, I bought with my own money. Money you didn't manage to funnel into your mother's account." Alex's face paled. "You don't understand. Mom needed—" "Save it." I cut him off. "We're done here." As we moved towards the door, Martha appeared, her eyes widening at the sight of the empty house. "What have you done, you spiteful witch?" I felt Emily tense beside me, but I stood my ground. "I'm taking back what's rightfully ours, Martha. You've taken enough from us." Martha's face twisted with fury. She lunged forward, grabbing a vase, one of the few items left, and hurled it at us. I pushed Emily out of the way, feeling the sting as shards of ceramic sliced my arm. "Mom!" Emily cried out. "That's assault!" Mackenzie's voice rang out. She stood in the doorway, phone in hand, recording everything. "It's all on video, Martha. Back off." Alex grabbed his mother's arm, finally seeming to realize the gravity of the situation. "Mom, stop. This isn't helping." I clutched my bleeding arm, adrenaline coursing through me. "We're leaving now. Our lawyer will be in touch." As we walked out, I heard Martha's shrill voice. "You'll regret this, Rebecca. We'll destroy you in court." The drive to our new apartment was tense. Emily kept glancing at my arm, worry etched on her face. "Are you okay, Mom?" I managed to smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. It's just a scratch." But inside I was trembling. Martha's threat echoed in my mind. Could they really destroy us in court? I thought of the meager savings we had left, the uncertain future ahead. At the new apartment, reality hit hard. Our furniture looked shabby in the harsh light of the empty rooms. Emily's face fell as she surveyed her tiny bedroom. "It's cozy," she said, trying to sound upbeat. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I know this isn't what you're used to." She turned to me, her eyes fierce. "Don't apologize, Mom. We're free now. That's what matters." As we unpacked, my phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Alex, voicemails from Martha, emails from their lawyer. Each notification felt like a blow, chipping away at my resolve. Late that night, after Emily had gone to bed, I sat on our second-hand couch, overwhelmed by the enormity of what we'd done. The apartment felt alien, a far cry from the home we'd left behind. Doubt crept in, insidious and persistent. Had I made a terrible mistake? Could I really provide for Emily on my own? What if Martha was right and they did destroy us in court? I buried my face in my hands, tears flowing freely. The weight of our uncertain future pressed down on me, threatening to crush my spirit. A soft touch on my shoulders startled me. Emily stood there, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mom, are you okay?" I tried to wipe away my tears to be strong for her, but I couldn't stop the sobs that racked my body. Emily sat beside me, wrapping her arms around me. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." As I clung to my daughter, I realized the true magnitude of what lay ahead. This wasn't just about surviving a divorce or standing up to Martha. This was about rebuilding our entire lives from the ground up. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with legal battles and financial struggles. But looking at Emily, seeing her strength and resilience, I knew one thing for certain. We would face it together, no matter what came our way. I stood outside the courthouse, my heart pounding. Today was the final hearing in our divorce case. Emily squeezed my hand, her presence a steady anchor in the storm of emotions swirling within me. "You've got this, Mom," she whispered. As we walked in, I caught sight of Alex and Martha. They looked haggard, a far cry from the polished, entitled pair they'd been months ago. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret in Alex's gaze. But then Martha whispered something in his ear, and his face hardened once more. The hearing was a blur of legal jargon and tense exchanges. Our lawyer presented evidence of Alex's financial misconduct, of Martha's lavish spending at our expense. I watched as the judge's expression grew increasingly stern. When it was my turn to speak, I stood on shaky legs, but as I began to recount our story, the years of manipulation, the disregard for Emily's well-being, the betrayal of our family's future, I felt a strength I didn't know I possessed surge through me. "Your Honor," I concluded, my voice steady, "I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice, for a chance to rebuild the life that was stolen from us." The judge's verdict came swiftly. In light of the evidence, she ruled heavily in our favor. Alex was ordered to repay the money he'd funneled to Martha, and a significant portion of our assets were awarded to me and Emily. As the gavel fell, I heard Martha's indignant shriek, "This is outrageous! We'll appeal!" But Alex's shoulders slumped in defeat. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and in that moment, I saw the man I'd once loved, the man who'd been lost to his mother's influence. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of the justice served. Outside the courthouse, Emily hugged me fiercely. "We did it, Mom. We really did it." Mackenzie joined our embrace, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you both," she said. As we celebrated that night in our small apartment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt hope for our future. Months passed, and slowly we rebuilt our lives. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion that allowed us to move to a better apartment. Emily thrived in her new school, her confidence growing day by day. One afternoon, as I helped Emily prepare for her high school entrance exam, she paused, her expression serious. "Mom," she said softly, "I want you to know, I'm proud of you, for standing up to Dad and Grandma, for fighting for us. You're the strongest person I know." Tears welled in my eyes as I hugged her close. "Oh, sweetie, you're the one who gave me strength. We did this together." The day Emily's acceptance letter to the prestigious private high school arrived, we danced around the kitchen, laughing and crying in equal measure. As we collapsed on the couch, breathless with joy, I marveled at how far we'd come. "We made it, Em," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Look at everything we've accomplished." Emily smiled, her eyes shining. "We did, Mom, and it's just the beginning." That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on our journey. The pain, the fear, the uncertainty, it had all led us here to this moment of triumph. We'd faced down the storm and emerged stronger, our bond unbreakable. I thought of Alex and Martha, wondering if they'd found peace in the aftermath of our battle. Part of me hoped they had, that they'd learned from their mistakes. But a larger part of me realized it didn't matter anymore. We'd moved on, creating a life filled with love, respect, and mutual support. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. For my daughter's resilience, for my sister's unwavering support, for the strength I'd discovered within myself. We'd weathered the storm, and now, finally, we were home. Our story wasn't one of revenge, but of reclamation. We'd reclaimed our dignity, our future, and most importantly, our right to happiness. And as I closed my eyes, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger than ever before.